Welcome to True Rebels Attain Victory Lunch Break Discussions with Travis Sellers.
And I'm John Wilson.
Yes, today we're going to talk about, let's think about it. Stephen A. Smith comes out and he defends, talking about Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowgirls. I say Dallas Cowgirls because I'm an Eagles fan, sorry. So
we get it.
Yeah. He comes out and defends him. What do you think? Do you think that that is something that he should have done? A lot of people having their opinions about it. Let's see what we talk about today and see what our opinions are.
And we're also going to discuss the talented 10. Think about the talented 10. Where did that come from? What does that mean? And is it necessary for us to actually have one today? We'll be discussing that as well.
So we're going to get right into it. Again, welcome. If you are on our channel, please subscribe. I know that's one of the biggest things that gives us support. And, share our channel with other people if you like our discussions. But let's get right into it. So the talented 10th, man, I wanted to talk about the talented 10th because it is I still think it's part of that education, leadership type of thing that I do value in some way. That I think it's necessary for, I think, any community to have. I think that most communities have those think tanks or those individuals who are like either in industry, science, or some type of academic endeavor, which they, or some academic discipline in which they, lead the discussions or the needs of the people in their community. I really do think that.
So I do as well.
No,
of course. I do. I think within different things. I think it's just to add some context to what we're talking about for those of you who may not be familiar with what the talented 10th means.
So let's talk about what the talented 10th is.
Basically, it's just a term that was designated the leadership class of African Americans.
But before that, in 1896, it says that the white Northern liberals of the American Baptist Home Mission Society, supported by John Rockefeller, by the way, they wanted to create black universities and colleges, or, to have, so that they can create these black teachers, these elites, and train them to be able to help. And of course, which is a good thing. To
Absolutely.
help African Americans in their communities, right?
Okay.
I guess so that they can do it instead of asking for support from others outside, which I guess they got some resistance at some point, right? Because you want to be independent, you want to be
so
able to take care of your own family, right? Basically, right? So I guess to help out, hey, let's get them colleges and universities, let's train them. So that's how that started.
Well,
and then W.E.B. Du Bois, he, I guess, adopted that term and wrote a book about it and had this extensive study on it.
Right.
And he took, hard, I guess you would say hard positions on it. And then I think what happened, the controversy later happened is, I guess is what would they call it? The classical education versus industrialization, or industrial education, being trained in trades and things like that became the clash. It was not useful, but what was you going to say? You was going to.
Oh no, you're going along the history of it, which I think is that's important. Is just to have the context for those who may not know the importance of having to understand where the term comes from and what was the controversy behind it. As we kind of go into the rest of the discussion from here. So as Travis said, the term in and of itself was one that is really associated with W.E.B. Du Bois, but it's not one that he coined. It's one that he used. It was actually coined by and used by, his name is Henry Lyman Morehouse,
Okay.
which of course
Morehouse.
the Morehouse College was
College,
named
yeah,
after
you're
him.
right, yeah. Because that's what
And
their whole mission was to
to
develop these
to
colleges.
develop these
Yeah, right,
colleges.
right.
So,
Right.
just so because a lot of times people will think that it was coined by Mr. Du Bois, and it wasn't. The actual, the entire theory of it was really a lot of the northern white philanthropists at that time, and then he adopted
Right.
some of those he had those essays he began to examine so that he could kind of broadly put that out there generally
Right.
to, I guess, our people and everyone else, just, to kind of get everybody into it. And
Right.
as you said, then the industrial, I think it was actually Booker T. Washington,
Booker T. Washington. Yeah.
he kind of had some back and forth. The irony in that whole discussion is that it is completely possible that both of them are right and should have really been on the same
Most
page.
definitely,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
And to me is I don't want to go so hard to say, but that type of collaboration where you already have like like we were saying before, with great power there's great responsibility. That's been Peter Parker's uncle, not the Bible. But the
Which
John
came first, the
Rockefeller.
Bible or Ben? No, I'm not.
Right, exactly. So, so I mean, John Rockefeller, making, investing into that type of thing, and other, leaders, that collaboration with our, I guess you would say our leaders as well. I think that's something that's necessary at some point, right?
Yeah.
And I can't, minimize that,
Right.
And take away from those efforts. I have to say that, right? I do have to say that.
Yeah.
That is a great effort, right?
On Rockefeller's part.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sure. I think that, yeah, I do think it's necessary. And I think it's necessary because I think that, you got to remember, historically, these are men that have great power. He's one of the richest men in the world. Mm-hmm. Some of his vast empire, no doubt, was acquired due to either directly or indirectly the institution of slavery. So all of who may have had a hand in our bondage and benefited financially should also recognize what the problem is, or recognize that there was a great wrong, and then move to
Yes.
fix that problem, correct that problem, and make
Rectify in some way.
So that
I don't want to go so far as saying reparations,
right,
but
right. No, I mean, and that was a form of it, I think, in a
Right.
certain way, to recognize what needed to be done to a certain degree. And he certainly benefited from the exploitation that he did. So,
hey, man, it's crazy, right? So that talented tenth. So going back into the term, the reason why I was so I'm always talking about it because I like the term talented tenth, because I think it gives some ownership on who should be the leader in discussions in the African American community, the Black community, and where we get in our information, really. Because I have to explain that to my sons all the time, that we get our informations from intellectuals and from people who write books, right? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily from entertainers, right? We can't have nothing against them, but we can't have Kanye West leading us.
no.
Leading discussions, or driving, like he thinks he's driving culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on.
Where did you think that comes from?
See, then that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. My problem is that we don't identify the talented tenth, even if we did it behind closed doors or we did it in the open. I don't think we actually do it. We don't actually have those people who are going to be. We're the leaders. We're running. I guess you would say the think tanks, the intellectual. I guess you would say the driving force behind strategies to improve our condition, and collaborating strategically with other counterparts that can help us move.
So who should
forward.
be in this talented tenth? So give me an example of either the type of industry or the type of thing that they, background that a person should have. Or even if you may even actually have an idea of who you think is in the talented tenth right now, or would be a candidate for that.
Oh, I mean, definitely because of his office, I definitely think that in some ways, Obama, Barack Obama, our former president, he should be. He is a part of that talented
Okay, and so all right, so and that and his contribution to that would be
because he has that worldwide experience that no one else probably in the world would have. I mean, only a few
but
people
I'm
in the
saying
world
what
have
so
that.
I'm saying what expertise would that be? Is that going to be in government? Is that going to be what
You can go.
aside from being just a figurehead and instead of just being
I
what
figure.
looks like a leader, what would he actually be? What would he actually contribute?
I think he. It depends on where people want to go with that, really. And I don't want to throw myself out there and people start criticizing me for it. But I
No,
will.
I
I
mean,
will take the brunt
no,
for
I
it.
would say okay.
I
So
will take the brunt for it. I think it's in terms of grooming other leaders. For example, grooming other Democratic leaders. That's a portion that I think could be that's needed. Be
okay,
honest with you, especially in the Democratic Party,
okay,
right?
right.
And not waiting to people just arise to say, "Oh, I want to take the banner," but actually leading other folks. It could be already being done. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's my. So you
Right.
have to have people in different industries. I mean, it could be in medical. It could be
Good. That's kind of where I'm going.
right. I mean, it has to be in a way where education, politics,
Business,
business,
industry.
industry, tech, all are coming together. And even if you're talking about like investments, if you're talking about someone who does what's that called, money management,
Sure.
all of those things, all of those disciplines that we need to function, people who understand banking, all those people come together and try to drive, I guess, some missions, some strategies to help, you know, move our condition past the all the barriers that we have. Like you can talk about education, education, like especially in, let's take city of Philadelphia. Education is pretty bad in the city, right?
Yes.
Even if you
Unfortunately.
even if you talk about attaching industry with our schools, we're not taking advantage of athletics. We're not taking advantage of the things that we really like, which is I'm kind of, you know, not really on that, but entertainment. These things that we're not even taking advantage of, like other our counterparts are taking advantage of. You know what I'm saying? And even if you want to say, you know, what we do here at Project Yes Youth Build, which is the construction and building trades, like we're not taking advantage of that. We don't
Who's not
have.
taking advantage of it?
I don't think us as a community, we are really taking advantage of some of the growth and development that we can receive in terms of incomes and businesses established. Yeah, all the whole the gambit of things. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Or yeah. So it's like if we send kids to school, right? We should have like industries that are able to support. Like we have a need because if you say that, let's say like you know for our organization, you have about 5,000 people who don't finish school in the traditional sense, right? 5,000 people in Philadelphia almost per year.
And that's through the Philadelphia school system.
Yeah. So like some people go to the charter school, some are in private schools,
Right.
whatever, but you still have that 5,000 who are not. How are we going to engage them? How are we going to engage them in a way? So that's what I'm saying. The talent intent, the people who have gone to school, have the traditional background, and coupled with people who already have the trades. Because we know people who have trades,
Right.
or have industry recognized certificates, or been in the industry. Could be even in entertainment. How are we maximizing? I guess you would say the workforce. How are we maximizing it?
So I'm going to play the angel's advocate a little.
The angel's advocate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm saying so instead of the devil's advocate.
So our talent intent must lead that. That's what I'm saying.
So all I'm so I would so a lot of that exists, right? So we have a lot of people that are
We do. That does exist.
well, a lot of people. I think that there are lots of people. So two things. The idea of this is not original, of course, as we're discussing that they've discussed this
So,
back,
pretty-
years ago, and
1896.
they worked on it even back then to some degree. So, what do you think, Travis, might be some of the barriers to that success? Even though we've discussed it, we know that it exists. There have been people who have been a part of it. You know, a number one part of what the talented tenth is was understanding and recognizing that people of certain expertise would sacrifice their own endeavors for the good of everyone else. Right? That was an important.
That was the important aspect.
That was an
to
important,
sacrifice their
absolutely.
own endeavor. Now, what do
Absolutely.
you mean by that? Like,
So instead of like, if whatever your talent was to give all of that talent, or to give a sizable portion of that talent, whatever it was, like you said, medicine, industry, business, entertainment, whatever that is,
right.
to further progress in your community, with specifically an African American community and Black people, right? So
Right.
and I believe personally that a lot of that has happened. Right? I do believe that there are certain people that were in politics, perhaps, certain people that were in entertainment. There are examples of that.
Really?
I think so. I say that because, yeah, I mean, so for example, a lot of people don't realize that a consortium of entertainers, actors, actresses, went to Dr. King early on.
Oh, you talking about okay?
In his
right.
in his career and leadership position as a young man, and they went to him and said, "Listen, maybe we can't do what you do. We're entertainers. We do what we do, but we're willing
Right.
to sacrifice resources for you and your family because it's difficult to be the leader of an organization or to be the leader of the people, and the hopes of the people to be like this person that is symbolic of all of that." And still pay your bills, take care of your family, get an
Right.
education for your children.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
that part is going to be taken care of. You do what you do, and you stand out front, and we're going to play the back and support you. So I think that is an example
Right.
of those in the talented 10th having their what it is that they do,
Right.
and then use those resources to push the agenda along.
Right.
The question is somehow, why does that is that continuing to go, and why is that still why haven't we where did we drop the ball at? We haven't really actualized, or does it continue to go and we just don't recognize it as that?
So, I have my opinion. So I think that, not trying to be heavily critical, because all those efforts I do recognize and I understand that as you were saying it, I see it clearly, right? But I think there was, along with, I believe some type of governmental assault on our progress. Of course, I have to say that I'm not dismissing that.
That's kind of where I was going with.
Yeah.
What do you think is a barrier to it? That's where I'm going. So go.
So with that understanding that there are some barriers and that they're heavily against us, and I could be wrong. I just don't think that there is enough of that same effort being reproduced, or like how people
point.
say like Black Wall Street. That's reproduce it. That's reproduce it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
We know what happened with the travesty.
Yep.
We know that it was ethnic cleansing. Let's not let that happen again. Let's reproduce it, and we got to keep reproducing it until it's successful, right?
Sure.
That's what people do with
Or duplicate it, right?
yeah,
Just
duplicate
replicate it all
Yeah.
over.
No, you got to just look at what they did. Just
Which
try-
actually they really did. There were other Black Wall Streets. It's just
Yeah, definitely, that was the
famous
most famous one.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
And I mean, because of the impact of that ethnic
ethnic
cleansing,
cleansing, sure.
It was like wow. But other like you said, other instances. But I just right now, like for example, since I was a kid, I'm usually looking at it as when I was a kid. I just really don't feel it that there was something that significant around.
Okay.
Now I could be wrong.
Right.
But I remember the Imam Muhammad Abdul Alim, he used to always talk about reproducing or even competing, and that's my idea. It's like competing with what they were doing in Chinatown in Philadelphia. Anyway, like see how they reproduce that,
Right.
Or they produce like their own banking and their own culture where they're exchanging business and having and able to share that with the world, you know what I'm saying, or
Okay.
share with the community, but they have their own ecosystem, right? and they were able to do it even on Cheltenham Avenue. And it's like as he's talking about that, they're working on that stuff, and I just don't see that within our communities. I know we tried.
Yeah, we had black
tried-
banks and different things like that. There were a couple.
There were a couple, but they're not around anymore,
Right.
right? So that speaks to like the failure of it, or our failure to maintain it.
I think we're hitting on something there a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that some of the responsibility. So that goes back to, it kind of circles back to the question of having those intellectuals be out front,
And respecting them enough.
and respecting them enough, and frankly, the intellectuals that are out front not be so elitist
That's
that
true.
they don't recognize the contributions of others,
True.
right? And not
Definitely.
recognize how important that is.
Yeah.
Because there's some synergy that has to go on there. There's a marriage. Unfortunately, at that time, some of us may have not been as sophisticated or interested in realizing that others may have contributions that you don't have. Like, there's one thing to sit down and pontificate about what to do, and then there are others that say, let's go do it.
Right.
And they get it done.
But we need to have both, though.
Right, but that's my point.
Oh, yeah,
My point
yeah.
is
I
that
know you're saying
they're
that.
not really
There
are times
they
where
don't marry.
They didn't marry it like
Yeah.
that. I think that they did, but I
divorced
think
it.
that, well, I think that what happens is sometimes
Man.
that with some of the intellectuals, they've accomplished so much with that that defines them, and that is sometimes they have a difference with everyone else as a result of that. But we've got to kind of get out of that mindset, and I think that there are times where we have.
Right.
So, this is important. It's an important discussion to
It's
have.
an important discussion because it goes into other discussions.
Absolutely.
Where I think a lot of our issue is that once you're a part of the talented 10th, and I think that in some ways, when I have like a master's degree, I think that I'm almost there, right?
Right.
And I feel like I'm responsible because if I have the knowledge, then I need to be the one actively trying to push agenda and coming up with strategies myself. I can't just sit back and
Absolutely.
say, "Oh yeah,
Right.
I got to wait for X, Y, and Z's." But I think some people are pushing the envelope. I think that we had 1619 project, we had the caste system, we had the color of money. So we have all these intellects. Now it's taking that knowledge and be able to create these strategies and then get it to the people. I think that's get it to where the goats can get it. But that's what, to segue into our next discussion. This is why I think it's needed that we have leaders to address certain things. So, for example, this whole thing with Stephen A. Smith.
Okay.
Right? This is one of my problems is that we have sports.
So what is the issue? Again, give them context.
I'm gonna give you,
Okay.
All right. I thought you was gonna do it. So
Okay.
yeah, good. So Stephen A. Smith, commented or came to this is a posting of Jerry, what's his name? Jerry Jones, great businessman, Dallas Cowgirls owner. And I would say this Dallas Cowgirls owner, I had to give it up to him. He used that college model of stadium because the University of Texas had 100,000 capacity of seating. So he used that same model because I think the average NFL seating is like maybe 60 to 65,000,
something like that.
right? So he took that concept like, nah, we're doing big here. We're gonna make some money.
Sure.
Now his joint,
Everything is.
that stadium can hold up to like 120. I think.
Wow.
Because with all the stand, you can stand up in it. You can.
Right.
It's huge and it's magnificent. But so that Jerry Jones, his picture, he's identified in the 1957 protests of in Arkansas. Right. Where his I guess his peers are protesting African Americans coming into the school.
Desegregation.
So I can't say that he was a part of the actual aggressive protest, but he's a part of that group, right? Because he's in the photo. You right there.
Yeah, there were a lot of other places to stand that day. In front of the school.
He could have been in his class, right?
He could have been in class. He could have been in school. He could have been on the opposite side of that. You're only blocking the door. You're only in front of the door where the camera's catching you in front of the door. on purpose, right?
Right.
So I get, there are lots of things that they could say why it was there. That he was just curious, and I just happened to walk in front of the
Right.
school where they happened to be going in. I wasn't trying to stop nobody; I was just standing there. I mean, which is crap as far as I'm concerned. But that's where you're going. That he was in front of the school, and he just happened to be in front of the door,
Right.
And now everybody's trying to excuse his poor behavior.
Yeah.
Ostensibly because they're saying that he was a youth and he was 14 or 15 or
14 to 15. He's in high school, right?
Right.
And someone said that, because you have these chats and you have people discussing. Someone mentioned like, oh, you act like he was standing in line he was getting his Ku Klux Klan registration. And I was like, if he didn't have, he was in line to get it.
Yeah,
Okay?
he had already graduated from that. If he was in that line, he already graduated from it.
Like he's actually in line and for it. Okay,
Yeah, that's
if
so,
it wasn't, but I'm not going to take it that far. But I mean, but it's not to me. And I was trying to tell him, it's not. We're not discussing this because even if we say, man, this is a new phenomenon for us as Black people to see. And to be able to identify a public figure,
right?
That's significant. Like I mean, me in history, I see the picture because we've seen the picture before.
Sure, right.
But now you can be like, oh man, that's Jerry Jones right there,
right?
The Dallas Cowgirls owner, right? You can see him; he's right there, and it's like, wow, like that's. I think that's a finding. I think that's significant to find out. I mean,
of course,
it's not like, oh man, why are you doing it? It's like, no, that's. You're identifying a person in the picture. That's something.
Well, it is something, but I think so. You're saying that Stephen A. Looks at that, and his view or his opinion is it's cancel culture, and because it's cancel culture, it's so long that he should not have to have any responsibility for those actions, regardless of what those actions were, whether or not they were benign or whether or not he was actually a part of it. That it shouldn't be noticed because of cancel culture that happened so long ago. We need to forget about that. We need to excuse him. He gets a pass because it happened so long ago. Right. That's essentially
me personally. I'm only talking. Yeah. Even if somebody posted a picture and I found out that was Jerry West. I mean, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to try to counsel him, and I'm not like that. But the fact that you are coming out and defending. As if it didn't happen,
right?
Let's just act like it didn't happen. I know he's in it, but he's 14. It didn't happen. Okay,
right?
It's like, come on, man. Like, why are you doing that? How come he didn't do that?
I think that.
How come Jerry West is not up there defending himself? Why do you have to defend him?
Right. I think that what happens is I think that to your point. I think that that's a legitimate question. I think that it's like everything else. Like with them, they want to have the excuse of why they are involved in things, and they want everybody to excuse it. And I get cancel culture. I know that there's certain things I believe that certain things people do in their youth, whatever are can be mistakes and things like that. The difference is though in Jerry Jones's in Jerry Jones's situation, he's never demonstrated that any of that wasn't a part of his racist behavior. He's never demonstrated, not has he acknowledged it as something wrong. He's never acknowledged it at all. Number one, that it was even a mistake. So the fact that Stephen A. somehow has a defense that Jerry Jones doesn't have in and of itself is ridiculous because he doesn't even say that for himself. Right.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's number one. Number two, his actions.
That's a good point.
His actions at that day, his current actions are informed by what he did that day. Right? The bottom line is currently right now, he has never had a black coach, is not interested in black coaches, is not interested in their being participating in the Rooney Rule, which is the Rooney Rule, which is in and of itself toothless, is just this thing that states
you just have to have an interview. That's it. Doesn't mean that you got to hire anybody.
Hire him. You just have to have an interview.
But Jerry sit there and go like this.
Right. So Jerry hasn't even done that.
But another thing too, when I said in one of my chats, I said based on what you're saying, not only did he didn't hire any black coaches, but if you look at his executive body, right? There are 34 executives, right? Guess how many executives that are African American?
None. Zero.
He does have 4.
Okay.
So 4.
Okay.
But look, So there are 34 plus. I didn't count them all. There are
Right.
34 plus players that are Black and African American,
Okay.
right? And guess what? There are at least 5 plus that are impact players.
Okay.
So you telling me that we can play the game and impact the game,
Right.
but we can't be executives?
Yeah. So you
can't.
yeah, no, you can't.
No, that's what I'm saying. So
right.
it goes into
well,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
you can, but see, this is the reason why I always say, man, seriously, like I love football, like many of you out there love football, whether you're male, female, doesn't matter. Like it's a great game, and we love to play it, and we contribute
it's
to it
tough.
so much, and we've always innovated in the game, but it makes it tough for me to watch. And it's tough for me to watch because a lot of it is not just tacit racism. It's blatant, man. Like some of it just comes out. Like and it makes it tough for me as an individual to watch it. And one thing we know, the reason why people talk about boycotts and things like that is because we know that, football exists, like all programs exist,
Right.
because of the revenue from corporations, right?
Yeah.
Advertising.
Yeah.
And it just makes it tough to support those endeavors when you know that they have something in place that discriminates openly against very talented men. Some of them are talented, some of them may not be, but you got to put them in the game. The other thing is,
But
is the way,
someone made a good point though, based on that though.
what's that?
Jerry Jones has made more Black men millionaires than a lot of other.
Right. So again, that's always that's again one of those ridiculous arguments that's put forth. He's a billionaire. So imagine the kind of money that you must have and your corporation must have if you can pay somebody $100 million.
Right.
If you imagine the kind of bread that you must have when you can sit down and you can pay multiple people on your in your corporation over $100 million. So it's really like a drop in the bucket. It's represented. If this table was his wealth, this much would be what goes to some of those people that he paid. Like the reality is, he's got a direct responsibility to have representation of 70% of the employees in just on football teams, not the NFL in general, but just on football teams. We make up something like 70% or better.
Yeah, especially his team.
Right, especially in his team, right? So we know that Jerry Jones, we know that unfortunately that young man that everybody says is so innocent and just happened to be in the picture because he had anything to do with it. That young man, unfortunately, that culture resided and lived in him, and it informed most of his decisions down the line. He does not respect the contributions of his players or Black people in general in this industry, nor as thinking progressive leaders in his team. This team will be led by white people, period, and everybody who is in the field will be running, passing, blocking. All of you will be Black, and that's part of the issue.
Man.
And the way that it's reported, and I'll even say this: the way that it's reported is messed up because the ESPN and organizations like that love to have an African American representative that comes out and plays to run interference or plays as the defender for people who make poor decisions like that, right? So
So Stephen A. Smith is that guy.
Stephen A. Smith is that guy, but it's like you mentioned LeBron saying that the reality is this: we can sit here, you will have me up here to criticize my brother because it's always important to have again another African American spokesman criticize and come out against another African American's poor behavior or perceived poor behavior, so that you will have this division and this conflict, Black on Black conflict,
Right.
exposed in the media and exposed in the world. They can't even get that together, and they're athletes. But you won't ask me about that. So that's what LeBron James was saying. You asked me about Kyrie. I was gracious enough to give you my opinion about that. But with Jerry Jones, somehow that's off the table.
That's off the table.
You know what I mean? But we got to discuss that too. I'm interested in that. And that's one of the reasons why, again, we often discuss that I dig LeBron James. I know that I like him because he is a leader. He shows that in his personal life, his professional life, his personal life, and he makes decisions in terms of business based on that as well. He's a very well-rounded character. I ain't saying he's perfect. I know he's not. There are lots of things where he isn't. None of us are. But what I'm saying is where it matters in terms of how he contributes to the human family, how he contributes to his community, and he gives voice to the voiceless. Many of the young Black men who play this game and who aspire to play the game that he plays,
Right.
He's an advocate for that, and I respect him for it.
Yeah, because that's one of the things of the talented 10th is to become directly involved with the improvement of the
Exactly.
communities, and he would be that person, and that's why
Would be a part of the talented team.
I think we have to identify it in a way. I think we should, from this conversation, I think we should, whoever's out there who's interested in that, we have to identify it because it's necessary. So when Stephen A. Smith, nothing against him, but he was just in error coming out the way that he did. And even if he's getting paid and he is friends with Jerry Jones, I get it, but it's just the way. I mean, it's just the way that he did it, man. I just think that sometimes when you're talking a lot, you make a lot of errors. You can make
Okay.
because this is his profession. So
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that we talked to him. He would agree with a lot of what we're saying. You know what I'm saying?
I think
so.
that he would not.
Oh God,
I think that he would.
I'm giving him.
No. He's a combat. His part of his job is to be combative. Part of his job is to be contrary and to
man.
defend his points.
Okay.
So he would do that. I think, even if he thought differently, he would still do it. Now, maybe in the recesses of some private moment with you,
Okay.
he might say wink and a nod. Maybe. But a major part of that is that, and that comes back to the issue with the talented 10th and how really effective they can be. And the reason why that you have to come back to that is because if your wealth is attached to criticism of systems against black people, it makes it difficult for you to do that.
That's true.
And the closer you are to those industries, the less effective you can be.
That's true.
So in his case, he's with ESPN. They write the checks. Pepsi pays those checks, and it's difficult for him to say divest from Pepsi when they help pay part of my salary.
Right.
ESPN pays my salary. So the talented 10th, part of what probably really has to go on between that is independent wealth. Aside from that, where your agenda is unmolested
Right.
by other people who have an
Exactly.
agenda against that.
Yes. And that was some of the scholars. They actually said those things that the same thing you're saying now. So that's very true. And that's the part that, not to get away from the Stephen A. Smith, but this is the whole point. That's the reason why I thought these married very well, is because that opens our eyes up and to see we need industries where
Absolutely.
we can be independent and compete in some way.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Competition is important.
it's competition is important.
It's necessary.
We don't all have to drive to these established industries. I just remember the advice from an established person in I think they were in radio, television, and film, and they were giving advice to newcomers. They were saying that most people are trying to be with the new industries. They're trying to go with the people who are already established, the new movie stars, or not the new movie stars, the stars that are already. Oh, I need to go talk to them. They can put me on and all that stuff, or I need to get with Jay-Z or the Puffies. But she was like, no, you're gonna rise with your peer group. Develop with your peer group, connect with them, network. So that's the same thing I'm saying. Like, if we don't have the staff, we can establish the people who don't have, or the people who need workforce. We can establish workforce to be a part of this competition. We have a large population out there. All those people who have money. We have a large population out here who are in the stagnant phase that they're either underemployed, undereducated, and if they can have don't have any training, if we can gather a portion of them, meaning I'm not saying all of them, a portion of them to start generating businesses where we are making and producing things, you never know, it can turn around the community.
Well, I think that it does. I think that part of, you mentioned you mentioned counterparts. I think that what Travis is saying, I think that perhaps what I'm saying as well, in general, is this the importance of something like the Talented 10th is that it's just an example and a microcosm of people coming together to build the nation.
Definitely.
That's essentially all it is. And there are lots of there of course are examples of this throughout history. I remember, I think the book, I think it's called The Transfer Agreements, talks about the development of the Israeli state while in Palestine. And this happened during the World War during the end of the World War II conflict, where lots of Jewish doctors, scientists, business people, captains of industry were tapped to go to at that time it was Palestine, or known as Palestine widely, and given, I think, I forget how much, $100 million, something like that, or more, in Jewish assets and in money to help form the Jewish state. And you can only do that, of course, right up front, if you have the intelligence, the intelligent people, right?
Right.
You can only do that where you have highly specialized
Classical education. Yeah.
People that have accomplished certain things. Now, keep in mind, that's not all you have, and they were able to wed those that were the vocational people, as well as the intellectuals, as well as those in business. They were able to wed all of those things, and it made it successful there. In terms of whether or not it's, of course, as you say, as you can see, I'm not even touching the fact that whatever the conflict is, how unfortunate it is for the Palestinian people or whatever. Irrespective of that, I'm just giving an example of what talented 10th looks like in terms of building a nation, oftentimes within a nation. And part of how you do that is you get these elite people, or what are looked at as elite. I don't really like that term, as if it, and
Accomplished,
but very accomplished people, and people who have
and classical
expertise,
education,
and people who
other
just have
industries.
expertise.
Yeah.
You got to have people that have a certain amount of expertise. Like, they have to be at the top of their game, though, right? You've got to have serious medical doctors, not someone who says, I want to be a nurse, so let me in. No, somebody who has already demonstratively have shown that they are an expert at what they do.
Okay.
And then you put them there. Now, they can train everyone else,
Right.
of course, but they have to be at the head of it.
Right.
And that's just an example, as I was saying, of our counterparts who have done models very similar to that and have been successful. And I believe we will do that. We can do that. I think that we must, and we should be having discussions where we're comfortable speaking with and having meetings with and joining with people who have similar ideas and aspirations for our people.
So if anyone is out there that feels the same way,
or not,
you can make comments on our YouTube page. It's True Rebels Attain Victory. This is our lunch break discussions. You can follow us on Instagram, and you can make comments there. And also, hey man, join us.
Absolutely.
Get involved if you're out there. The talented 10th.
Absolutely.
The divine 9 out there.
Absolutely.
Let's get it together,
man.
Let's get it together.
Yep. You have a direct responsibility in this.
Yes. It's more than just giving
and
out
it's over
book
and
bags.
above Freaknik. It's got to be more than that.
And giving out book bags.
Right.
Hey, we can do more than that.
Right. Good.
It's some talented people out there. We can do more.
Absolutely.
It's some talented people out here, and I know that. So, hey, thanks for joining us. Until next time, peace and love.
Peace and love. Thank you, family.